Hi, everyone. Welcome. So glad to have you all here as we're waiting for everyone to get logged in. If you can share what county you're from in the comments, we'd love to know where everyone's coming from today.
Hi, Pauline Atkins from El Dorado County.
Hi, Pauline. Yeah, if everyone wants to share in the chat where they're from, that would be
Oh,
wonderful too. Yeah.
okay.
Hi, Catherine from Alameda. We've got Sutter Yuba, Solano. So we're going to be talking, since we're talking about accessibility for social media today, we're going to throw up a little poll as well to see where your knowledge base is for social media. So Melissa's going to throw that poll up for us so people can answer that. All right, we still got people coming in, so we're going to just wait a couple more minutes before we kick off. So happy to see so many of you here from LA and Solano and Yola. Wonderful. So yeah, here's our accessibility web uh, poll. So how familiar are you with social media accessibility? Wow, I cannot talk today. So good that people are somewhat familiar that that's what's leading right now. It's good to know that y'all have heard about social media accessibility, and hopefully you've read about it in our Rooted in Marketing newsletter. Mhm. All right, and if you're just joining, feel free to share what county you're from in the chat if you haven't already. We love knowing where all of our volunteers are coming from across the state. It's a big state. Yeah, just make sure you're chatting to everyone, like Lauren says. Yeah. It likes to default to one specific person sometimes. All right, I think we are good to get going. Hmm? Yeah, we're going to share those results. So it looks like most of you are somewhat familiar with social media accessibility, but want to know more, and this is the perfect place to be. So that's what we're going to talk about today. As you all know, social media accessibility is something we're really pushing for here across the state of California with the UC Master Gardeners, and we have the amazing Dora Garay here from UCANR Strategic Communication to help share some more information about that today.
Thank you, Barbara. Can everyone hear me? Wonderful. First of all, I want to thank UC Master Gardeners for giving me the opportunity to talk about accessibility for social media, for allowing me to have this space. This is a subject that's very important to me. I've been working in the social media area for more than 15 years now. We were talking way back when Facebook was barely starting, and I feel really strongly about being able to um, reach as many audiences and serve more importantly as many audiences as we can. So before I jump into the presentation, we definitely want to go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I missed a couple things before we started, so I want to just so everyone knows this will be recorded, so we'll be sending out the recorded in the Rooted in Marketing newsletter next month. And then if you have questions during the presentation, feel free to pop in and ask questions as we're going. You can either put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll take questions as we're going. I think that's all my important things. Back to you, Dora. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So as I was saying, we definitely want to give credit to UC Davis. They have been working in this area and have compiled a website, and we'll make sure to give you that you have access to that website later on. With a lot of useful information about accessibility, specifically for digital spaces. So again, we definitely want to give them credit. Um, Once again, my name is Dora Garay. I work with strategic communications. I'm the social media strategist for the team, and I am based in Davis. So before we jump into the importance of social media accessibility, I do want to mention, sometimes we look back at our social media work and think, I wonder why I wasn't doing this for accessibility or doing that. It really comes down to we don't know what we don't know, right? So I'm here in this space just to really encourage you that moving forward, we look at accessibility like we would any other social media content creation step. The same way that we wouldn't put up a blurry picture or an incorrect name with a person photographed or put up erroneous information, right? We want to do the same for accessibility. We want to check as many spaces as we can in making sure that our posts and our graphics and our videos are accessible. But again, please allow me the space just to, again, encourage you to take those steps moving forward if you are not already doing so. So why is social media accessibility important? Well, let's start with inclusion. It's really all about making sure that everyone, no matter their abilities, um, may fully participate in online interactions. This includes folks with vision, hearing, movement limitations. And we want them to be part of the community as well. It's also a matter of it being the law. As a public institution in California, it is the law for us to ensure that all of our digital content is accessible according to the California law. It's also, I believe, an ethical responsibility. We don't want to do things just because it's the law. It's also, we have to come in with respect and trying to give equal access to everyone in our community. I'm not sure how many of you know, but it's also an SEO advantage. So basically, the search engines are going to reward you if you create content that's easily accessible. So it'll push it up in the algorithms because they want more folks to interact with your content. The more accessible, the better the algorithm is going to work on your behalf. And it's also a better user experience, not only for folks who are using assistive technology, but just for everybody. If the graphic looks a little cleaner, if you're providing the URL in the post versus the graphic, it just makes it for a better experience for everybody. So today we're going to talk about post copy, graphics, alternative text, image descriptions, and video captions. I'm going to stop my video for a second because as I play the video, I'm getting a delay here. Okay, so with post copy, we want to, as you can see, I gave an example here from the UC Master Gardener program that speaks to how the post should be created. We want to use plain language. We want to be inclusive of everybody in our community, independent of how they consume information, right? So we don't want to make it difficult for them to understand. We also want to avoid overusing all caps. Sometimes we do want to emphasize, let's say, an event or a specific date, so we will use all caps for date, but I've also seen an entire paragraph. This is very difficult to read and will often be misinterpreted by assistive technology, so just keep that in mind. We also want to limit emoji use. And I know emojis make our content look pretty and sometimes even more attractive. And we think we're grabbing attention because folks also search for emojis, but really they're not that accessible. So sometimes you see that, especially ucanr on Instagram and Twitter, we tend to not overuse them for this reason alone, right? So just, if you're in doubt, just read this out loud. This is how this would sound, especially if you put it at the very beginning of a post. Tree emoji, tree emoji, tree emoji, tree emoji. And you haven't even gotten to the meat of your message, right? So again, I encourage you to use them. As you can see on the right, we used one emoji for that entire post. You also want to use camel case hashtags. That's capitalizing the first letter of each word in a hashtag. Sometimes the platforms are going to be pretty tricky and try to revert that back to all lowercase. And all of a sudden, we'll realize, how do we do that? We put in the camel case format and we posted, and all of a sudden, they had turned it back for us. So sometimes it does slip, but whenever you can, try to do this. It's just more accessible. You also want to shorten your URLs. It's going to, again, like I mentioned earlier, look prettier, more concise. But it's also it sounds better for folks using assistive technology, because each character is read character by character. I'm sorry, each URL is read character by character. You also don't want to overuse symbols to replace words, because it will read equal symbol. And again, it just takes away from the meaning of the post. And I've highlighted adding image and or video descriptions in the post caption, because I will be talking about that in a little bit. Okay, so getting to creating posts with PDFs that are posted in a JPEG format, right? I see this a lot, especially from our advisors. And this could look like a great idea from the beginning, right? So you're thinking everything is in one page. So I want to inform my community, so why not just provide everything for them? But as you can see here, and of course, this is a mock post, this is really not accessible, and I can't emphasize this enough. And I know it comes from a good place of trying to get information out there. But a assistive technology software will not be able to read this. So you're missing out on providing this information to a good portion of your community, who would just basically get an error message when they see this post. In addition to that, there's nothing else that would link to more information that they can use assistive technology with in the actual post. It's just a very simple post, and then you're attaching a PDF. So please try to avoid this. Even a few, I would say even a couple of years back, for the ANR page, we were also posting a link to a PDF, and then realizing that if the PDF is not accessible itself, even if you're linking to it, then we're basically in the same boat here. So there are ways of making PDFs accessible. I'm not an expert in that, but hopefully we get to that point where things are either in that format or in an accessible website. So now let's jump into graphics, right? You have kind of your post in mind. How do we make graphics more accessible? This is just a very small example. These are created for Instagram stories. And as you can see, the one on the left, you might think, well, this is just not enough information. But really, graphics are intended just to grab attention of the community it's intending to that you created it for. So here we have the date, we have the name of the event, we have the call to action, which is register now, and the location. And this we would then link directly to the website that includes all of the information. As compared to the one on the right, where it does have several issues. First of all, that is too much text, especially for the story format. We have a huge color contrast issue with the yellow and the white. And we will provide a website containing, basically it's a little calculator where you plug in the color codes, and it'll tell you if it has the accessible contrast formula, which is 4 to 5 to 1. And your eye kind of gets used to it the more that you do it. But as you could see here, where it says tickets on sale now and the white over the yellow, absolutely not accessible. But again, we have resources to help you kind of determine what is and what's not. You also don't want to use anything smaller than 12-point font or 16 pixels, because again, that's just not accessible to everyone. So the way that I used to test this at the beginning. Now my eyes more accustomed to it, is I used to create a draft version on my phone. So pick your smallest device and test it there. If you have problems reading that, I guarantee you a lot of people are going to have issues reading it or any portion of the graphic. So try doing that at the beginning until you get a little used to it. You also want to use consistent and standardized fonts. A graphic that has 4 different types of fonts can create confusion and affect accessibility as well. So something that we do often at here at ANR's main Instagram page, also for Facebook, sometimes for LinkedIn and X as well, is creating infographics. Sometimes we don't want to send them to a website or let's say a PDF that's not accessible. So we create a series of infographics. Now Instagram allows you to post more than 10 in that carousel. And this makes it easy for you then to add the information into the alt text so that folks with assistive technology can also have the information in hand. So of course, this takes more time. And sometimes, you might just want to put the information out there, but maybe it means that instead of doing 3 posts in the week, you do one of these infographics, but at least you know that you're getting to as many people in your community as possible. And also remember that you do have to then add, we'll talk about alt text in a second, but you do have to add the information in the alt text. Another similar to the PDFs, we want to avoid what I call JPEG flyers. And basically this is what would be, and again, it's just a mock example, right? But I do see these very often where people take flyer format and use them in a JPEG format and attach it to a post. Again, it's enticing because you think, well, all the information is here, much more detailed information. You have the barcode, and I'll speak to that in a second. You have the date, etc. But really, this is not accessible. Again, assistive technology will not be able to read this, and a person will get an error message. In addition to that, I created the post so that it doesn't include a website. Folks sometimes think it's enough to put the flyer up there, but you're not giving them an option to really click on that website for more information. So if you're not able to get the information through assistive technology, at least you would have been able to get it through the website, because the barcodes really are not accessible and they're not used appropriately when we're using social media. We should just go straight for the link. This flyer has other issues, of course, way too much text. I guarantee you some of this text is way too small to read on an average device. And I do understand that sometimes you all get, let's say, petitions from partner organizations saying, can you please share this content? And of course we want to do that. I mean, that's part of the social media community. What I would advise is you asking them for the original photo, for the logo, of course, and then creating a mini version of this with very little information, again, just to capture the essential information, and then also write more into the post, including the link. So that's how I would go around this issue.
So Dora, we have a question that I'm gonna pop this up real quick, or share this really quick. Someone is asking, is it okay to direct people to a link in the Instagram bio rather than putting it in a caption since it's not clickable in the caption? Do you want to talk about the Instagram link
Oh, yes, absolutely.
thing?
In fact, that's what we do. When I was given the example above, that's for Instagram stories. So for Instagram stories, we do, have an option of just linking directly to the site. But for the post, we always do that. Unless it's something really short, I usually do both. If it's something, for example, ucanr./jobs, I include that short one because it's easy to remember, but I also say more information in the link in our bio.
We do the same. Awesome.
Okay. So now let's jump into alternative or alt text. This is the text that is embedded into a post and it briefly describes an image. This text is hidden from public interfaces, but it appears in a platform's code. The text allows assistive technology to explain what is in the post for those who may not be able to see the image. You want to add it to every photo, graphic, or GIF posted. Again, you want to write in plain language. You want to stay neutral. Again, don't assume somebody's gender, don't assume somebody's race, and don't assume a location. Stay with your facts. Keep it as concise as possible. All text does have character limit depending on the platform. And again, only provide details if they're critical to understanding the image. I had I'll jump into that later. Actually, right now, let me stick to this. Now with assistive technology, we do have the platforms kind of giving us suggestions, which is helpful. This is how you get to the Facebook one. If you go into the photo and edit, you will get a suggestion for alternative text. So what I do sometimes, because it is helpful, I will copy it and then paste it into the custom, and I will edit it for accuracy. But it does give you a good head start. I would start with Facebook, and if you have the same image for Instagram, then your Instagram photo is already done. So that's just a little tip there. So in this case, for example, the alt text would be a person in a kneeling position working in a garden. An overlay graphic reads the following, and as you can see the quote. We want to describe who, what is in the image, including the graphics, the text, and the action. We want to include any program name for context. And again, don't include any non-essential details. So here I wouldn't say, there's a hill behind. And somebody asked a very good question when I last did this presentation. They said, oh, we were told not to mention the graphic or the overlay. But I just ask you this, if the graphic has any importance and you took the time to put a graphic over the image for the people who could see it, then it's equally important for the people who cannot see it. So you don't have to go into details in the colors here, and you could just say something as simple as an overlay graphic reads. And I promise you you'll get used to this and it'll just become second nature. Now the colors do become important, and I do talk about colors when, for example, the graphic includes colors for Juneteenth that are very specific colors, or for Hispanic Heritage Month, for example, that we are paying attention to the color of the graphics for a reason. So again, you want to transmit that also to the members of the community that are not able to see it. So now this is something that tends to confuse people a little bit because folks are just starting to include this in the accessibility portion of social media, in that those are image descriptions. Not a lot of social media accounts are doing this right now. Davis has been, for the UC system, at the forefront of this, and we at ANR are barely starting to kind of introduce image descriptions. So image descriptions are pretty similar to alt text. They describe what is happening in the image, but are written in the post caption. They're not embedded into the image. And the reason for this is because just the same way that we consume social media differently. Sometimes I will scroll down and mute all my videos, and sometimes I want to listen to what the music or what people are saying right in the video as opposed to just closed captions. Folks who are visually impaired also consume information differently. Sometimes they don't want to use assistive technology for the alt text. They want to do it just for the actual post, because then it can become overwhelming. So then we're giving them, basically, with the image description, another option, right? So as you can see here, I hope you could see this and it's not too small, speaking of accessibility. And I'll show this graphic again a little bit ahead. But basically, it's right below your post copy. And I chose a really simple example here. As you can see, clearly says image description. This is also an opportunity to add additional details that you wouldn't in alt text. If you have maybe a specific location, or add some additional individuals that you couldn't name again in the original alternative text, right? You could start with what you use for alternative text in terms of the caption, and then again, just add a little bit more details there. So in this case, we wrote on a blue sky summer day, a female researcher takes notes while standing beside a wire fence on an open field at Sierra Research and Extension Center. And the reason we added female here was because this was an image that we took specifically for a Women in Science campaign. So I feel confident that I am able to place a gender here. And again, this is just an example of it. If you're looking for more examples, I really encourage you, as we barely take off at ANR, to look at the UC Davis Instagram. Yeah, UC Davis Instagram page for examples. And again, this is just keeping in mind that for folks who are visually impaired, they might just want to take the information from this post. So now let's move on to video captions. And I know that this sometimes becomes a little complicated for folks just because we do put a lot of effort into creating video, and they're not necessarily easy to create. So then on top of that, we're thinking, okay, so how do we work the video caption portion? But again, I highly encourage you. I'm basically going to give you 3 options for video captions, right? And it all depends on how much time you have in your hands, or the tools, right, that you would use for this. But basically, video captions are subtitles. It's Captions or subtitling is a written transcript of the video's audio, and it'll show up as the audio is played. And video captions help people understand what is happening in the video if listening to the video is not an option. And each social media platform does have an embedded, except for Twitter, they don't have an embedded captioning format. But if you do Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn, they do give you an option there. And I'll talk about that in a second. So what we recommend as your first go-to is the closed captions. And this means uploading an SRT file, and you would have to use an individual tool to get that. And I could talk about that in a little bit. But basically, this is what gives the user most flexibility, because you could turn on captions on and off. So again, you want to be most accessible. This is what I would recommend. And I'm playing this just short example here of what closed captioning would look. This is one of our YouTube videos here at ANR. Sorry, I'm trying to move forward here. Okay, the second option would be open captions. So open captions are burned into the video's image when you edit. And I tend to do this for Instagram because I trust it more than their automated captions, and I am working with a specific software. But again, this also doesn't allow for the person to turn off the captions if they wished. So this is, again, our second go-to. You have to make sure that everything is edited, because even these programs will not transcribe everything accurately. Also, make sure that you check for font color, that the background and size are accessible for the captions as well.
Hey, Dora, would you mind sharing what software you're using to edit your Instagram videos? It's one of the questions coming up, and I know
Yes,
that's,
for sure. And I will talk about that in just a second.
well, then never mind. We'll wait for that.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. And then the other ones are the auto-generated captions. As you can see, this example here is something that we did through Instagram. Instagram has probably the best accuracy, to be honest with you, more than Facebook and Instagram. But if you do go for this option, make sure that you edit for accuracy as well, because even though they are the best in the game, and this is sometimes something that you would do if you, let's say you don't have the budget for one of those tools I'm about to mention, you want to at least provide one of these. So this is a pretty easy one because it is embedded in the social media platform. Give me just 1 second. The video is getting stuck here. Okay. And speaking of tools, this is exactly what I was just mentioning. You can look into any of these. These are ones that have been vetted from, I believe, UC Davis. Adobe Premiere, of course, it's a little bit more convoluted, but it's a really good one, especially for SRT files. I really like Mixed Caption. It does cost $10 a month, but it's very user-friendly, very easy to edit, very easy to move those captions according to, to your video, because sometimes we have the lower thirds, for example, with someone's title, and you don't want that to overlap. So I really do prefer Mixed Caption out of all of these. And again, this is just repetitive, but we do want to always make sure that we edit those auto transcriptions. We have, and from my experience, I have most trouble with Instagram. I will go in, and if I'm doing an auto-generated caption, they will not save my edited version, and it becomes, you don't know until the actual video is posted. So it could be a nightmare sometimes. So I really prefer using one of the tools above. And don't forget that if you add a song lyric that is important to the story, we're not talking about background music, but something that is kind of part of the story, then you do also want to add captions for the song. Don't forget about flashing imagery. Sometimes you might think, oh, well, when will I use that? But sometimes we use like creative overlays. And just keep in mind this information also from UC Davis. Flashing light between 5 to 30 flashes per second is most likely to cause seizures. So again, just something to keep in mind as we're getting creative in video production. This is a checklist that I absolutely love, also from UC Davis. It'll be on that website that we share with you. But it's basically a little cheat sheet where you look at the platform you're working with, and then you scroll across, and they basically tell you what you should be looking for in terms of accessibility. So again, we don't all know where to go and how to be accessible. So this is, again, just a way of helping each other figure it out. I hope that you're able to hear this. I'm going to play a video that shows what all text looks like on an Instagram feed versus the image description that I described above. So let's play the first one. And let me just adjust the audio here. I want to make sure you could hear this.
Post by Octavius. Taken 1 day ago. Photo by Octavius. A white and tan goat looking at the camera with her ears up and standing on a fence at the goat teaching and reaching facility. Image.
So that, again, I don't know about you, but it did feel shorter, right? Was it enough? It could be enough, let's say, for legal reasons, for sure. And then take a listen to how the other one sounds when you put it in the post.
Octavius, dear Aggies. Happy Monday and happy week 0. You goat this winking face. Red heart. La. This adorable alpine doe from the Aduktaviskis Go Teaching and Research Facility Go. Hashtag always current vertical line hashtag Aggie animals. Image description. An alpine doe is standing on a fence looking at the camera with her ears up. She has a white and tan body and a brown and white face with light brown eyes. A black and white alpine doe is standing on the fence next to her looking away from the camera.
So as you could see there, I just wanted to share that because I thought it was a very cool way of taking in the experience, right, of how it would sound. Sometimes I myself wonder, how does this sound for somebody else who is not able to see the image? So keep that in mind when you're thinking of, why am I doing this extra step? Because it is, and I do recognize it is extra work. So I encourage you to follow us at ANR if you're not already following us. We are not perfect in accessibility, but I promise you that we are doing our best to try to be as accessible as possible. And you might be able to grab some examples, and you might be able to see how we've failed at being accessible at times as well. And then now I am here to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Dora. I always learn something new at your presentations, and I'm always remember something I should be doing that I haven't been because we're not perfect here at Statewide either. So yeah, does
Yeah.
anyone have any questions? Don't be shy, guys.
Yeah, I have some questions. It's Stephen Cantu from the San Diego Master Gardeners.
Hi, Stephen.
Yeah. Good program, thank you. Color contrast. I've noticed on some of the photos, they were difficult to see because of color contrast. Is that something that's taken into consideration?
Can you explain a little further?
You had a photo of a woman in science on a background of wheat and next to a barbed wire fence. And with the bright white shirt and hat and so on, it made for kind of a blurry eyesight, at least for me. Am I overinterpreting that, or is that something you can consider?
That's a good question. And I actually think that's something that we should absolutely consider. I'll be honest with you. It's something we want to make the image as crisp. We want to post images that look as crisp as possible. That's always the goal. So I don't think that's something that we should be overlooking. And when, Barbara talks about learning something new, this is something that I'm going to keep in mind a little more. I haven't been in a space where we talked about images and contrast at this level, especially linked to accessibility, but I think that's an important point.
The other
I'm actually
question
probably
I had,
look into it a little further.
you mentioned barcodes when in fact we're looking at a QR code.
I'm sorry, QR code.
Yeah, that's okay. But are you saying not to use those on websites?
On social media
But
when you're posting.
but on printed material, it may be okay.
Absolutely.
How do you define all that?
Yeah, absolutely. The reason that it doesn't work well for social media is we have very specific numbers stating that most people look at our social media content via a telephone. And even though you are able to get information from that QR code, if you take a screenshot of your phone, then put it into your camera wallet and photo wallet, and then from there, but it's too many steps to get to that website. However, if you are at an event and you have a poster with a QR code, that's how we should use it. Because all you need to do is go up with your phone, snap a photo, and then it'll send you to that link. Also with flyers. So anything that's you're able to just shoot with your basically with your camera on your phone is where you should be using that.
Yeah,
So
they were.
what you're saying also is that any information that's going to be displayed from that QR code should be designed to be used on a smartphone, opposed to a computer desktop or laptop or so on.
Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's why when we're in conversations with our new website, the IWP project, one of the things I'm always raising my hand for is how does this look on mobile?
Mhm.
Because sometimes the emphasis, right, is always like maybe desktop, but how does this look on mobile? Yeah, so those are very good questions. If you don't provide a link to the website on the actual post on social media and you leave it only on a graphic, that's absolutely not accessible. Because how can a person get to that link? The reader is not going to be able to read that QR code.
Mhm.
And I have one last question. I don't want to hog up too much time, but font size, you mentioned
Mhm.
font size. What about any particular fonts that you would recommend? Because there's a lot of fonts out there that are impossible to read. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's the go-to fonts?
So the go-to fonts, I highly recommend that you use your UC Master Gardener style guide, because I think that the team has identified the ones that work
Mhm.
well. You also stay within branding. We've done that for Stratcom as well. We know that they tend to be accessible. They're not the extra cursive ones that would be difficult for a reader to read. For the
Yeah, Melissa just put in the chat the link to the communications toolkit that will give you the approved fonts and colors and all that stuff. So you should always look at the communications toolkit first when you're going to pick your fonts.
Well, thank you guys. Learned a lot.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. You made me think of something else. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
My
I just
pleasure.
wanted to say really quick, I do this kind of work for my day job, and so I build websites, and accessibility is a very important part of that. I'm so happy to hear about all of this. This is great. And my one comment is just, we look at all of our analytics, and uh, people access our websites via cell phones by far the most.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
By far. So a lot of people are used to designing and thinking about websites from a desktop perspective, but it's really shifted, and it really is predominantly by cell phone. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Joelle, you got your hand up. What do you? Oh, you're still muted. There you go.
Sorry. I was so excited to lower my hand. I've never used that before. That was fun. I forgot to unmute. Curious about alt text. Is there a way to add alt text to photos that sit in a repository somewhere for all our master gardeners to use so that when they bring it into social media, it lives somewhere that they can pull from, or do you have to kind of recreate it each time?
Huh.
So I can't speak for master gardeners, but I know for strategic communications, they are literally saving my life. We are using Binder, which is transitioning to Binder. That's where our images are being transferred to anything from the UC regions that we are allowed to use. Of course, for social media. And I was part of the conversations initially on what would work for social, and this is one of the things I mentioned. So that specific image actually that Stephen was talking about at Sierra Foothills Rec has all the information I need in there. And that's actually why I was able to say this is from a specific campaign, so I can use the word female. And it has a lot of that alt text. And not only for social media, for websites as well. And I'm not sure, Melissa, Barbara, if this is something that you guys will also be.
Yeah, we've been working with a vet to try to figure out security with our IT team and how Master Gardener volunteers and coordinators will be able to access Binder. So we've just been kind of in a holding for the last couple of months, but that is the tool that we're preferring to use as far as for a repository of images. And there is taxonomy, so things will be tags and there will be alt text in the images that are put into that database, and it should be transferable over. But yeah, so right now we're just trying to, with all of the increased security from risk through our IT team, we're just trying to figure out how that will work with being a volunteer organization. So more to come, but Binder is right now what we're looking into too, Dora.
It's great.
Yeah, I think I have access to your webdam right now, and I do see that that has the alt text in it. But then we down here in San Diego take a lot of our own photos, so we want to kind of recreate it maybe in Box or another storage type system. So I'm just curious if alt text can follow the image around, or if it's always something you have to copy and paste and put in.
I think if it's put into the metadata of the image itself, it stays with the image. So when you download the image, it should save with that image when it's put in. Usually it's at like the photographer level. So whoever is the photographer, they put in that information kind of into the file itself. And then wherever that file is shared, it goes along with that file. And so I know that there's programs like Adobe Bridge that help photographers keep organized in that way. It is a lot of, it's a heavy lift on the back end, but once it's done correctly, it is for all users. It really makes it a lot easier. And then I see Emily shared about using Flickr. Again, the alt text images, it sounds like can stay with Flickr images that you can copy and paste. That's great to know. That's an alternative that we're looking into, like a Flickr Pro. So if you have any feedback about how that's working for your county, we'd love to hear more about Flickr.
Thanks.
All right, in the chat, we had somebody ask for a little bit more explanation on what an infographic is. Do you want to share your definition, Dora?
Yeah, absolutely. So, sometimes folks think, well, infographic is going to be one graphic with a lot of numbers and data, right? But we like to separate ours exactly because of accessibility into a series, like I just explained. So let's say that I am sharing information about caring for tomatoes. And all of that would be considered the info that would go into an infographic.
Mhm.
So instead of placing everything, I mean, we're talking the steps, we're talking time of year, all of that is the information that goes in there. Instead of doing it in one infographic, we do a series of them
Mhm.
so that then we're able to attach an alternative text to each portion of it.
Mhm.
And that makes it just more accessible.
Yeah, very similar if you all follow the statewide Master Gardener social media. Each month I do like September or August gardening tips, and I'll break that out into a series of images where each image has its own tip. Those are sort of what infographics can look like. So
Yeah,
hopefully,
but if you were to, let's say, Google this and Google an image of infographic, try not to use some of those examples that
yeah,
do crowd a lot of information into one graphic, because again, that's where it stops being accessible.
100%. Yeah. So hopefully that answered your infographic question. And then Jan was wondering if we could review how to get to alt text on Facebook. And I can explain that quickly. When you go to upload your picture and you click edit, you want to, once you've uploaded your picture in Facebook, whatever that picture might be, there'll be a little button on top of that photo that says edit, and you just click on edit, and then you'll have an alternative text option right there. So that's how you do that in Facebook.
And again, assistive technology is getting just much better at this.
Mhm.
So I find that they're making less and less mistakes. I don't encourage you to use their option. You want to add more
Yeah.
details, of course, but they'll get you started for sure.
Mhm. All right, any other questions? Feel free to unmute and pop in. I know this can be a lot of information to take in and a lot of extra steps, but it is so important and really does help all of our followers across the board.
And also, yeah, actually to that question, Michelle, will the presentation and any notes be available? Yes, we will definitely share. So like I mentioned, I have worked closely with the UC Davis team, not on this subject, but they have other resources. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel. So we will share that website that
Mhm.
includes a lot of the information that I presented. It's good to receive it in a presentation format because you're really thinking about the approach, right? But you will receive a lot of this from that website. I will also provide a link to my presentation via box because the videos make it too large to just email. And well, we'll figure out how we'll get this to you. And you will also get some of the other links that we were talking about.
Mhm. Yeah, Melissa just posted a link in our chat to our Facebook social media group. So we have a private group on Facebook specifically for UC Master Gardener social media. It's been quiet for a long time, but we're starting to get going again and starting to share resources in there. So we'll be sharing the recording in there. We'll also be sharing a lot of these all these resources today in the September issue of Rooted in Marketing. If you're not already subscribed, that is the best place you can be to get information on marketing for UC Master Gardeners. It goes out the first of the month every month, and we try to include lots of resources, tips and tricks, and links to all of our webinars and things. So Rooted in Marketing is your best bet. Link to that is in there as well.
And I also want to add something. As we look at image descriptions, and something I didn't get into today was even video descriptions, because I think it could become overwhelming. That's a perfect example of how even in accessibility, things are constantly evolving. Folks were not thinking of video or image descriptions even a year ago. If you go to Instagram pages linked to other UCs, you won't see those yet. We're just, again, all working to try to be as accessible as possible. So when you take in this information, I ask that maybe you don't allow it to overwhelm you, and just think about, what is it that I can do today to make this post more accessible? I promise you, anything on ANR's site, I can go back and think, I should have done this differently. I should have looked at this color and not have done this color contrast. So I share this with you because, again, it's just a work in progress, and we're all just trying to be as inclusive as possible.
100%. You shared one of my quote images and I went, that author white on yellow is not working. I need to update all of my quote images. So I have a to-do out of this webinar. It looked pretty, but you can't read it. So we've got Rooted in Marketing, our social media group, and then everyone remember that we do offer office hours here at the statewide office on Tuesdays from 11 to 12 with Melissa and myself. So if you have questions, would like us to take a look at something, want to brainstorm a topic, just need to ask anything about marketing and communications, we are here waiting to chat with you Tuesdays from 11 to 12. So we'll pop that information in there as well. It is a more updated link that we updated in the last couple months because I went and got married and changed my name and made all my links not work. So thank you for updating your links everywhere. And we're sort of coming to the end. If anyone has any final questions, thank you all for joining us. And Dora, thank you for all this information.
Thank you for the space again. I appreciate it.
It's one of our favorite topics. We love talking about this. But yeah, like Dora said, we're all doing our best. We're all just trying to, I mean, there's a lot of things that come up that we're not doing at the statewide level that I need to work on. So it's a journey for all of us. So we're in it together. All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Bye.